Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for the second installment of CoveritLive University. My name is Spencer Kitley. I'm the event specialist here. Appreciate you joining us today for the latest webinar, and we look forward to sharing with you some important SEO tips that will help you with your CoveritLive use and get you improved SEO. Before we get started, I want to provide a brief overview of the format of today's session. We expect this webinar to last between 20 and 30 minutes. At its conclusion, we'll take questions, which can be sent in via the WebEx client chat window. Also, during the chat, if you want to send questions in through the CoveritLive chat, the links you received with the WebEx login information. We have staff members that will be taking those questions, and there's two options for that. There's a standard chat link as well as a Facebook chat link. Tomorrow we'll post this webinar on the web, and you'll be able to view it. We'll send out a link when that is there and ready. And let's go ahead and get started. So I'd like to introduce the host of today's webinar, the General Manager of CoveritLive, Ben Schneider.
Thanks, Spencer, and thanks everyone for joining us. Hopefully all of you, or at least most of you, got to attend our first session where we covered a lot of new updates in CoveritLive, a lot of features that we've introduced over the course of the last year, and new features that we've taken advantage of from listening to feedback from our customers and seeing different things that we think would be good additions to the product based on the use that we're seeing out there. Today's session will be much more narrowly focused. It's around SEO with the idea of how do you get SEO traffic and search engine traffic to your live events. Live is a little bit tricky because it's not just a page that sits up there, and it's obviously important to get that traffic during the course of the event. And so we'll do a couple of things around this. First, we'll talk about a lot of the features that CoveritLive has and how you can use CoveritLive to better drive search traffic. But to set that up, I want to sort of cover a background in SEO to make sure that everybody has sort of a base set level of knowledge. It's not sure of everybody's expertise, and people may have a different familiarity with terms and concepts around what happens in internet search. So briefly, I want to give a little quick one-on-one session on that, and then dive into some of the best practices, starting from some of the most simple yet most powerful things that you can do to some of the more complex and some of our more advanced features, including our new channel pages, which are available for our custom subscription customers. So with that, we'll jump in. One thing we thought it would be good to make sure everyone has a background of, and not sure how many people are familiar, but CoveritLive's parent company is Demand Media. And Demand Media is a media company with several different areas of business, one being social solutions tools like CoveritLive, things that help you power engagement on your website and engage with audiences and customers and bring more power and more interaction to your site. Also includes the Plus product and several other products within the social sphere. But the other main components of Demand Media's business are actually running owned and operated media websites like eHow, Livestrong, Cracked, TypeF, and those properties generate over 100 million uniques each month with traffic brought in, and a good chunk of that brought in through search traffic and by producing content and having sites and pages optimized around bringing in people through search and helping them find things that they're looking for. Likewise, we also take that same sort of business line and the same sort of procedures and technology and practices that we've put towards running our own properties, and we do that for a number of partner properties as well, including USA Today and Golfsmith, Cron, Hidden Valley, among others. And in these cases, we run certain sections of their website. Maybe it's on personal finance or small business or how to golf tips, how to improve your golf games and things like that. And we run just those subset sections, which are designed to bring traffic into those sections and then build that to the rest of the site. So with that, inside Demand Media, we have a team focused on understanding search, all the major search engines, Google and Bing, Yahoo, etc., and how search works, how it changes over time. There's always updates happening, and what are the best practices to do things the right way and also still build a lot of search traffic and do things in a friendly way that actually helps and benefits the website. So with this, we have a lot of expertise to draw from, both from our social products as well. So Plug and CoveritLive have the advantage of going to those teams and asking for the things that matter most and understanding what practices are best for driving search traffic and how we can optimize our products around that. So with that, I'll start with kind of just the highest level overview of how search works. It hasn't changed substantially the basic elements of it since the explosion of the internet 15, 20 years ago. An element, there's crawlers, and basically there's crawlers and sliders that follow through links, and they copy that page content and store it. And they do that by conversing the links that people actually have on their page and throughout their site, or sometimes through submissions. And then that data is used to build up indices around what content is on the page and what different pages are really about, and even whole sites, and they're with each of their own proprietary weighting systems. Those proprietary weighting systems have changed substantially over the years. They were very easy to game early on by putting just a lot of content in your page that may or may not be what you wanted the users to see, but the search engine wouldn't know the difference. So there's definitely been a lot of improvements around that weighting systems and the proprietary things used to detect what a page is about. But the fundamental elements of crawling, spidering, or having robots go across pages, store that content, and then analyze it is still very much the same. Then users go to these search engines, whether it's Google, whether it's Bing, and they type in the results, and based on the weighting system and the internal technologies used, results are presented to the user, and then feedback loops have been built in to where, depending upon what users click, that's fed back into the system to understand how accurate the results are. So if nobody's ever clicking on the number one result, then maybe it's a bad result for number one. We should weight it down and move it up. In sort of the most simplistic terms, those are the basics of how search works. But obviously the nuance is where it gets very tricky and where it becomes very important to understand what else is going on so you can get the most out of things like CoveritLive. I'm not going to hit on all of these literally, but there are a few key concepts, and you can come back and reference this later, that are commonly talked about in SEO whenever we talk, and when we talk about what's best for CoveritLive and how you can get the most out of your live events, we'll be talking about some of these things, and you may have heard them whenever looking at other products in terms of how those products work with SEO. So just to first make sure we have the most basic comprehension down, that SEO, what we're talking about through all of this, is search engine optimization. That's kind of a broad term because it's not only just optimization. A lot of times it gets used as in that context, but it really just means search engine visibility. When people talk about having SEO-enabled web pages or sites or products, what they really mean is it's search engine visible. It may not necessarily be optimized, as opposed to something that can't be seen by search engines or isn't search engine friendly. A couple of the other key concepts that we'll talk about a lot whenever I go through some of the various options you have with CoveritLive will be server-side and client-side. And essentially, these boil down to two different ways that interactions on web pages happen. So server-side are all the things that are processed off on your servers, wherever they may be hosted for your website. The content is pulled in, and all that thing is put together and printed out to the user, and where they see it in their browser. And all of the content that happens server-side, all of the operations and things that are dynamically put into the page server-side, very, very easily are seen by search engines, and therefore can be accessed and used to determine the quality and the content and the context of that page. Things that happen client-side are usually through JavaScript or similar technologies, maybe even previously Flash was popular for it. And client-side things are all things that happen only within the browser. So they still do talk to a server, but they happen after the initial page is presented to the user, or maybe in parallel to that happening, and is processed sort of out of bounds and may not necessarily be visible to search engines, or at least not considered as highly. This is often the case with things like advertisements and a lot of times widgets that are plugged into the page. And one of the things we'll talk about a little bit is, are those things actually available for search engines to see, and what sort of value do they have? On one hand, I'll talk about this a little bit more in a moment, but those items can be seen. Just about anything that can be rendered on the page for a user to see can also be seen by a crawler or a web bot. There's no reason technically that it can't. The question comes in as to how valuable it is for a bot or a web crawler to see that. You don't necessarily want one of the search engines to factor in the advertising information you have on your page as a part of an article, because that will throw off the results and make a bad user experience. One last sort of thing I'll touch on is iframe, and iframe is what the traditional CoveritLive implementation uses. And essentially what this allows you to do is embed one web page inside of another. So the traditional CoveritLive widget or iframe is pulling from another web page that's hosted on CoveritLive.com and then embedding it in your page. That's the traditional, most common, and easiest implementation. And oftentimes it's said that iframes can't be crawled, which is not the case. Iframes can be crawled, but the key thing to remember is that the attribution for that content often goes with the domain of the iframe instead of the domain of the page that hosted it. So that's something I'll show some examples of a little bit later as well. So you can look at these. If you have questions about SEO, kind of use this as a reference point or come back to this. As Spencer indicated, we'll make the presentation available. And just thought it would be good to sort of have this as a reference point for a lot of the technologies that are used in referencing SEO and some of the things that we'll be talking about throughout the presentation. So some common questions, and I touched on these a little bit, but the first one is what content matters. And really, this boils down to whenever one of those crawlers or bots analyzes the page, what things does it think are most important? And this has become much more complex over time because just the simple notion of reading the page and trying to decide based on that ignores all sorts of important factors. Like one is somebody trying to game the system by putting hidden text or content into the page. Or number two, has this page been around for a long time and is not as relevant as another page that may have less content on it but is actually much more timely and accurate? So those sort of things have forced Google and others over time to change and become much more sophisticated about how they evaluate content. But there are some key things that have remained true and are even more true today than ever before. Obviously, what's on your page matters, and it has to be consistent with the title and URL that you have from the page. But having keywords in the URL and the title is super important as well. That shows consistency with the page and shows a lot of consistency and gives a huge trigger as to what the primary focus of this page is about. So if you have certain words in the title and in the URL, such as live or blog or chat, then that's a huge indicator as something that that page is definitely about and is not trying to conceal and is going to be consistent, and therefore that brings traffic and gives a lot of favorability to the search engine rankings. Other things that matter are inbound and outbound links, and this has been a key part of Google's PageRank over time. But there's a lot of other factors that they've put into PageRank and that have changed as well. But essentially, in a nutshell, what it means is that it's evaluating your site, trying to determine that is your site consistently of quality and is it consistently talking about what it says it's talking about. It doesn't have a lot of traffic, so is it a trustworthy site? And PageRank is a system that Google has developed and tweaked over the years that essentially assigns a ranking value to at a domain level that lets the search engine know how trustworthy this particular site is. And therefore, content within that site is automatically going to get favor as well. As I'll show in a few examples in a minute, URLs, titles, and your host page for CoveritLive are absolutely, above everything else, the most important things for driving search engine traffic. All of the technical implementation in terms of whether you do an iframe or whether it's embedded in the page, all of that stuff does help and influence, but time after time after time, URLs and titles and a consistent landing page are what's going to give you the absolute most benefit. So another common thing that comes up is do ads and flash and iframes, JavaScript widgets, all of those sort of different things that you'll hear embed codes. Do those get crawled? And as I mentioned a minute ago, the key thing to remember is those can be crawled. In fact, Google has indicated at various points in the past that it does crawl those things. It does crawl JavaScript. It does crawl Flash. But what they're not clear about is in what cases and how is that data used, how is that content used, and does it really influence the search results a whole lot? And if you just look across the web, and a lot of what we've analyzed around this is that rarely is it an impact to results, and rarely can you tell where it actually influenced the page. So if you're pulling something in dynamically from JavaScript or something like that, it very much can be accessed by Google, and most likely that's done in order for Google to check things like, are you using AdSense and is it consistent with what's happening on the page? Are you using other Google tools or other competitors' tools? And they want to have some degree of knowledge around that to know if the page is trustworthy as well. So at least as of now, and of course this can always change over the future, those sort of things, widgets and JavaScript-oriented and even iframe-oriented pieces do not impact results. And as I mentioned, it could do things like make ad content be part of something you're searching for in an article content, and that would be a bad user experience and actually reduce the quality of results. So it makes sense as to why most of the time that content is not used, even though the search engine may know about it. The other kind of most common question is how immediate is it? And obviously, there's a lot over time, Google has done a lot as of the other search engines to make things more real time. They've done this in a few different ways. They've introduced social components, where for a couple of years there, even though it's gone now, you saw that Google had Twitter results that would come up in your search if it matched things there that were trending. But crawling and indexing still takes time. Even it's doing it persistently all the time and going through those pages and re-updating what content is on them. But obviously, the internet is constantly expanding at a rapid rate, and to keep up with all of that and do it nonstop, it still is going to mean it takes some time. So if you put up your page today, posting your live blog, and expect Google to find it right away and be able to drive traffic, even if all of your content is delivered in such a way that Google can see it, you're probably not going to get what you're expecting. It still takes time for it to find that, and then it also takes more time, even once it's indexed and analyzed and stored that page, to then determine and analyze and decide where should it rank in search results for various types of words. So most results are not immediate, even though there are certain packages of results that it will show on the page, such as for news, or on certain pages that it knows updates frequently. Google will check those more frequently and favor those in the results. but that's not a guarantee for all pages all the time. So sort of with all of that baseline SEO background, and hopefully that gives you a good idea around how some of the features we've designed in CoveritLive can help and lend itself to more SEO for you and help you drive traffic to your events. I apologize if you already knew a lot of that information, but hopefully there were at least some pieces there that were new or provided some additional confirmation for things that maybe you didn't already know. So starting off with best practices, in a very traditional CoveritLive implementation, pasting your iframe inside of your article template, there are several key things that you can do that will drive a lot of traffic. And these best practices are all designed around your host page, and we'll start off with some of those because these are the simplest things that you can do that give you the most feedback. First is to make sure you post your event to the host page several days ahead of time. As I mentioned, crawling takes time, and so you want to make sure that Google has plenty of time, as well as other search engines, to find that content and analyze it. And the longer the page is around, the better it's going to rank as well, because it knows that it's been on the internet for a while. You can also start seeing how much traffic those pages are getting, and just has a lot more data around how trustworthy the page is. Also, using keywords in your page title and in your page's content to enable the page to be indexed accordingly is really, really key as well. So your individual comments by talking to a CoveritLive chat or your questions and your answers, certainly they do provide some value when search engines can see those, but for the most part, those are very limited and very contextual, and in and of themselves aren't going to register with a whole lot of the main keywords that people are searching for. So while they add some value to your page, they're not the primary driver. People are going to be searching for a live chat or a live fantasy football chat as an example you can see here. Just searching for live fantasy football chat lends itself to the CBSSports.com CoveritLive chat. Even though that was done through a traditional implementation, it's the #1 result because the host page indicated what was going to be going on in this chat. So that's a very key element to always remember. Include it in your URL, include it in your title, and have a little bit of a summary on the page, and you're going to get a lot of benefit, especially if you put that up in advance. As I mentioned, the URL is another key place. So whenever you include live chat or live blog or live Q&A or whatever it is that you think people should best find your content and your chats on your events, then the URL is a key piece of what's weighted in that. And including that in there will absolutely drive traffic. It also makes it very easy for users to find just naturally, to type it in and remember where to come back to. And also gives you an option to dedicate a location always for your live chats that will get updated frequently, and the search engines will see that and know that they should recheck that page for your new events as well, and also give you more time to have that page live and build up more traffic to it. Real quick, I want to show a few examples of these just so you can see how easily a lot of this comes up. So the example we just showed, if I search for WE Live, there's two results that are going to come up here. The first one is actually for getting tickets to events, because that's the title of the event whenever it travels around the country. But the second is, you'll notice, just from searching on WWE Live, I get the live chat and where the CoveritLive pages are hosted. They do a couple of really key things here. They included the URL, it's included an introductory information about the events that are being hosted, and it's also a central location for all of the various events that they do that you can come back to regularly. All right. I'll show some more examples as we move through some of the other CoveritLive options, but through bouncing around through a lot of these, if you'll notice, and you can Google even long-term sort of terms like Los Angeles School District meetings and things like that, and you'll notice that those pop up, the CoveritLive live chat pages, even though they're not done with an implementation that allows all the chat content to be seen directly on the website, but the hosting information around the page really drives the bulk of the traffic. So related to this, a best practice is also using groups and cover pages. So if you're not familiar with these particular features in the platform, groups allow you to organize and sort of cluster different sets of CoveritLive events together. So if you want to separate them out by topic or by category, you can do that. Or if you have multiple properties and want to do it that way, you can do that as well. It essentially allows you to organize your events and then have use cover pages, which is an ability to hub all of your events on a particular type of page or on a particular page and see current live events, upcoming events, and completed events all in one place, and allow your audience to find those and go through them. They can watch replays if they want to. They can see what's about to come up and set up reminders, and they can see what's live now and watch them. And it gives you a centralized location. That content is going to update frequently. It's going to make it easier for your users to find, not just from search, but naturally. but also having those on the page and having a centralized hub is going to build up more and more traffic and improve the trustworthiness of that particular page over time and drive you more search results. So the next option is a very simple one to do whenever your events are completed. You can save the content locally, and this is a feature that exists for all CoveritLive customers as well, and it allows you to essentially download and generate an HTML of the chat content embedded on your site. It'll still look like the CoveritLive window, and the user can still scroll through it sort of at their leisure, but all of the event content is embedded in the page naturally, so it can be seen by search engines. This is particularly useful once the event's over if you want to, say, embed it in your own site or embed it in a blog. Or do something like that and have the full content there. It also saves you on replay clicks. It's also useful if you want to archive the full content into your CMS. So there's a number of reasons where this is great. It brings you lasting SEO value once the event is over. It allows you to archive that in your system if you want to do something else with it later. And like I said, it's also a way that you can just put it naturally into your website and get the traffic for that without it going through CoveritLive and saving you clicks and allowing you to use those for your live events. Quickly, I'll show a little example of this. I think the WebEx is just a tab behind me. All right. So I'm logged into my account and where we do all of our demonstrations from, and I'm going to jump in real quick and look at one of our completed events. And then whenever I look at my list of completed events, I'm going to select this top one here. And up here I have the option to save the content locally. So whenever I do that, a little window is going to open that allows me to copy and paste the content. Now for today's purposes, I'm just going to do this quickly into a real rough text editor and just save it locally so you can see it on a page. There's no heading, there's no wrapper around the page. It'll be very crude, but you'll get the idea. Essentially, I can put this content just into a regular HTML page. Save it. And then I can view that page locally inside the browser. And again, it looks like a traditional CoveritLive chat, but one of the things to note here is that all of this content is actually stored locally. And if you want to know that sometimes, how can I tell which things are being delivered directly into the page versus which things are being served client side and coming up outside the page that wouldn't be accessible? An easy way to do it, and again, it's not completely foolproof, but is to view the source of the page. If you right-click on a page and click to view source, or go to one of the property options from your browser and do view source, you can then see the full content of the page. And if you look here, you'll notice that it's a massive amount of text, and it's all of the content from the CoveritLive event. So that's all going to be visible to search engines and therefore provide value in that way. So those two features are very simple, available to everyone. Use your host page wisely, and in combination with groups and cover pages to provide a hub for your activity, and then save content locally for your best events whenever they're done. The next option requires a little more effort. It does require some engineering work. And this is to use the CoveritLive API or even just the RSS feed for SEO. You can gain SEO value by essentially using our interface, our programming interface, to pull content directly out of CoveritLive and embed it into your pages. You can do that either directly into your page templates, or having it integrated into some outside system that works with your CMS. Any number of other options that you can do, or anything that you may want to do, and it also allows you to do a custom presentation of CoveritLive outside of what you traditionally get in the normal chat window. So this is really powerful. We have a lot of customers who do a lot of things in the API for custom implementations, some of them for SEO, but some of them just because they want to embed it in native mobile apps, or they want to do custom implementations of their homepage, such as Lemon. But this is a great way, although it does require more work, for you to get even live content data directly into your pages, and it's available to you as all customers. It's just you have to take the development effort, but can use our API to integrate in any way that you want. Let's find a quick example of that as well. Let's see here. Jumping back over to Google. If you do a search for the Gladwell football chat, this is a CoveritLive event from a couple of years ago that was done on the New Yorker, and using the API or the download of the content, they then embedded this natively in their own format inside of their website. So So if you look here, this Ask the Author section, this obviously doesn't look like a CoveritLive event from here, and they've been reformatted it to show how the questions and answers and such look. And they did that programmatically by pulling that content out of the database, out of the CoveritLive system, and then embedding it in their own page. And you can do this through the APIs. You can also do this through the saving content local option as well, and just reformatting the content that comes out from the system natively. So it offers you a number of different options. Similarly, you could also use just something simple like the RSS feed that's provided with events, and embed that, whether it's a lot of CMS programs, even blog programs, have very simple widgets that allow you to take that content from an RSS feed and natively embed it into a page. And I'll do that really quickly on my web blog. So this is just my demo web blog that I've set up. And I'm going to add a little RSS widget on the side. And this is going to pull from essentially all the different CoveritLive events that I run and just show the title of them. But you can also do this with a specific event and show the content of an event. And then once this is saved, I have content over here on the left side that's being pulled from my RSS feed directly into the page. And it gives me links to various different events that I've run in the past. Or it could be one singular event that it's providing direct content to. Now if I look at the page source, I can actually do a little search and find that there's a CIL demo ticker. Here's a link to it. Here's the title and the link to the page that it's hosted on. And all the content is delivered natively into the page server side, so that way a search engine could pick it up. So the RSS feed is also a really simple option, slightly simpler than the API, but does require some development effort, or at least some plugins that support RSS that allow you to pull the content in server side and get it search engine accessible. So the last option I want to walk through is our new channel pages. And we talked about this briefly in our last call. And sorry, the WebEx may be lagging just a second here. This is a new feature that we released about a month ago, which allows for any of our custom annual customers, custom subscription customers, to have a page set up for them that's hosted by CoveritLive but uses their domain. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, one of the key things to note is that whenever you embed a CoveritLive iframe on your page with your chat, the content does get crawled. But instead of it being attributed to your site, because it's an iframe, essentially a web page within another web page, that content gets attributed to the host site, which is in our case is CoveritLive.com. Now, as the examples I showed you, like with WWE and others, you still get the search engine benefit for generic terms like live chat and things like that based on your event and based on how you set up your host page. But if somebody were to search some of the very specific items in the chat and try to get to the page through those will actually are going to get attributed to CoveritLive.com because the chat window is being iframed in. A way around that, if you're a custom subscription customer, is to have us set up a channel page for you. And essentially that's a domain that matches your domain, something like live.whatever your domain may be.com. And in this case, in the example that we have for the Manchester Evening News, manchesterlive.minmedia.co.uk, that is consistent with their domain name. It's getting attribution under their domain name, but it's actually hosted by CoveritLive, and it looks like their own website. So you can have us point to a template. You can set up a blank template page that we will crawl and pull in and automatically update the site to look like yours and match that. So it's essentially co-branded, and it's under your domain, but it's being hosted by us, and we deliver up the content server side. Once we know the initial domain and have that set up, then it's very easy. You can manage things on your own. You can update the template on your own, and you can manage which events that you can plug into or remove from that channel page. And I'll show an example of this in just a second. So the key thing to note here is this provides you additional SEO value because all of the chat content is also going to be attributed to your domain. It matches the look and feel of your site, even though it's being hosted by CoveritLive, and you can control the setup, update the template, and also add additional monetization and tracking options and other things like that to the page, even though it's being hosted from the CoveritLive system. So now I'm going to jump in and show you two different elements of the channel pages in terms of how the setup works. So channel pages are enabled for your account. Anybody who's an account administrator will see them as a menu option whenever they're logged into the CoveritLive site. You simply click on channel pages from under the extras, menu. And then once you have told us the domain that you want set up, any domains that have been set up for your account will be listed here. So in this case, I have our demo site set up, live.democover.com. And it's the only one, but you can have multiple. And if you have multiple, they would show up here. You can select that particular domain and see a live link to it to click out to it, which I have here. And this is actually the live site for our channel page for our demo. You can also have it set up a development URL where if you want to do changes and try out different template things or sort of prep things or stage them, you can do that. And then also have a template for that development URL as well. What the template is this is a URL that you provide to us that has a blank template and a little bit of markup in it that specifically says where you want the CoveritLive window to go. So you tell us the CoveritLive window location and size with markup that we specify in documentation that we give you. And then you tell us where the URL of that template is. We will automatically crawl that template and make it look like, and use that to make the site that we're hosting look exactly like yours. It will pull in your ad tags, your tracking information, and all of that sort of stuff. If you make any changes to that, you can always, we will automatically update that periodically, but you can also come in and change the URL or just force us to do a recrawl and get updated information at any time by coming into the admin area and clicking update. From here, you can also select what events you want published to your channel pages. So if you click and look at upcoming events or live events, you can select those and add them, or even remove events that are currently provided to your channel page. So if I want to remove one, take it down, or add additional events, that I can do that. I can add live events, completed events, or upcoming events, all from this administrative area. And this isn't the only place you can do it, but this is from the channel page standpoint. If you want to adjust what content is available on the channel page, you can do that. So now if we jump back and look at our demo page real quick, refresh it, you'll see that now we have the CoveritLive University 2nd edition hosted right here, my demo ticker that I've used for using examples, as well as some completed events that I just pulled from our test data to show up here as well. Any of these that I click, I can view inside the channel page. I see the content just like a traditional CoveritLive window, can click to go live. But the main difference that you'll see here is that if I do a quick viewing of source and use our trick to determine what content is being pulled up server-side versus client-side, this content is all being delivered directly into the browser and under this domain name, which would get attributed to your site and therefore give you a lot of SEO value. So if I take one of our users who's been chatting, like Fabio, I can find his comments and find the content all inside. So again, this is very powerful for getting more SEO value out of your chat content and for driving even more traffic to your site, particularly from longer tail searches that may be related to your live chat, because the big keywords like live chat, live log, live Q&A, and those sort of things are really going to be driven by your host page content, as we mentioned at the top. So one other thing I will show, and then we will open it up for questions related to channel pages, is how do you, other than doing the channel page management as an admin, how do your editors and your producers add events to channel pages? So whenever you're adding a new event, or even an event that's already published and is running right now, you can edit the properties, or whenever you're creating a new event, do it on the initial setup. You can now select, whenever you have channel pages enabled, whether or not you're just going to run the event standalone, which is the traditional implementation, or whether or not you want to publish it to an SEO channel page. Then your channel pages will all appear down here, and you can check any of those that you want to have it published to. So if you want to syndicate it to multiple channel pages at once, if you have multiple channel pages for multiple properties, you can do that. If it should only go to one, then you can do that as well. Similarly, you can still also embed that in your normal article template or your native articles, just like you did before with the traditional CoveritLive implementation. Having the event produced to a channel page doesn't prevent you from also still using the traditional embed iframe and putting that in other locations on your website, or even in other websites, so you can syndicate it that way as well. And likewise, if you're interested in publishing the event to Facebook, we have that feature enabled as well, so if you're the Facebook admin, you can run the event there. These options can all be used in conjunction with each other to drive the maximum amount of traffic and audience to your event. Or if you're wanting to own all of that traffic in one particular place on your site, then you can just selectively use ChannelPages or the normal embed or Facebook or whatever meets your needs. So it's very easy for your editors to publish their events to their channel pages. And if somebody needs to go and override that or go pull in historic events, you can do that from the administrator standpoint as well. And once the initial domain is set up, it's all self-serve from there for updating templates and publishing your events. And that is ChannelPages. So a quick plug for the next CoveritLive University session, and then we'll jump into any questions or thoughts that anybody has. We'll do our next session, Thursday, October 11th, same time, and this will be focused on monetization. We'll talk about a number of the features that you can use to monetize your CoveritLive events if that's something that you're interested in. So being able to manually embed ad content within CoveritLive using the API to generate content automatically or integrate with other systems, or including our pre-roll video and display advertising functionality, which allows you to put that content on the front of the event whenever people click for live updates, in addition to other options and strategies that you can use. So that will be our next event that we'll focus on next month. And I want to thank everyone for attending today, and hopefully you found a lot of useful information. And if you have additional questions outside of the presentation, we'll follow up on those. But if there are any questions right now that would be good for the group, I'm happy to answer those as well.
Great. If you please, you can submit questions through the chat window in the WebEx presentation. Additionally, we also still have our staff standing by in the CoveritLive chat if you choose to ask those there. We do have a couple questions here so far for Ben. Then we have a question from Herb, and his question is, can I automatically change the ad content on a channel page?
Make sure I understand the question correctly. I believe the question is, can you, when you have a channel page and you have that template, do you have the control to swap out the ad content, any display advertising or other advertising that's attached to that page? The answer is yes. Through that functionality I showed in the admin area, we automatically will update your template. So if you just publish a new ad tag or updated ad information to that template URL, we will automatically get it periodically. But if you want to make sure we get it right away, you can always log into the admin area and click that update button next to the channel page template, and we will go and grab it then. And therefore, you can make any changes to the template, whether it's updating advertising or whether it's making, maybe there's layout changes, maybe the site has a new design, or you've added something to the navigation. Any of those things are good reasons to update that, but advertising is certainly one of them.
And then we have a question here on the CoveritLive API. I know you touched on it a bit in the presentation. This question comes from Pat. And Pat was asking, what event data is available from using the API?
So virtually all of the event data is available from the API. There's robust documentation on the site that talks about how to get at specific types of data and what all is included and how it's classified. But generally speaking, all of the event content, so anything that gets published into your event, whether you're pulling in Twitter content, whether you're pulling in user comments or providing your own content directly, all of that content can be accessed and pulled in from the API. You can also submit content and do a lot of other things as well for managing the event, but basically all of that content is included.
All right, we just had a question come in from Jordan Schiffman. He's asked, we touched on this a little bit last time, but embedding the chat into Facebook is something that you can do with CoveritLive. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure. We introduced a feature right at the end of May that allows you to very easily, when you're setting up an event or editing the properties of an event, to publish that event to Facebook, to a Facebook page. What you do is essentially click a link. At the bottom of the event, it says click here to essentially add this to a Facebook page, and then you'll get prompted to log into Facebook if you're not already logged in. And once logged in, you'll of course get the normal app approval that you get for just about anything in Facebook. And then it will show you any pages, any Facebook, whether their names have changed over time, right, the fan pages or brand pages, however you want to reference them, or fan timelines. Any of those that you're an admin of will show up in a list, and you can check and publish your event to those particular pages. What it will do is add a tab inside of Facebook that from the timeline, you'll see like one of those little boxes, right? There's the about, and there's photos, etc. There'll be a box for your CoveritLive event. And users can click that and see and participate in the whole event within Facebook. And we did a demo of this in our last session, and we'll likely do a follow-up. One of our future webinar series will be on the social tools, including primarily focused around Facebook and Twitter. that we will focus on in the coming months, and that will be a session that will dedicate entirely to that and other tools that you can use in conjunction with that. But essentially it allows you to host that event completely within Facebook if you like, or in Facebook in addition to hosting in other pages, which is what we're doing today, and have that event run there just by simply being able to click in the setup to do it. You can also click to unlink it. You can edit how you want that labeled, how you want the event labeled within Facebook as well as the logo. And then you can leave it up there. It can run replays. You can also link not just events, but cover pages. So if you want to have a hub for your events, just like I talked about having those on your site or in a channel page, you can also do that on Facebook as well. So all of your events persistently come up on Facebook. So it's a really flexible option. And it should be noted that prior to that feature being released at the end of May, that capability was available, but it required you going and creating your own custom app and pasting the CoveritLive code into that. You had to get a developer key for Facebook, and we had steps outlined for that, and some of you may be familiar with that process. And it wasn't super technical, but it did involve a number of steps and did require a little bit of understanding of how the Facebook developer program works. And so to eliminate that and make it much easier, we added this option where you essentially can click. If you're the admin of the page, you can add the events to the page, remove them, make edits as you need, and go. So it's a very simple option, very robust for publishing in Facebook.
And we have another question here from Matthew, another one about Facebook. Is it possible to syndicate events to more than one Facebook page?
Yes, it is possible. As with all of the CoveritLive options, you can syndicate CoveritLive events to multiple things. You can send it to multiple Facebook pages, to multiple channel pages, if that's something that you're set up with, as well as embedding the CoveritLive embed tag in multiple places. So you have a number of options for syndicating it. You can do it in multiple locations across all the various different ways that you can publish an event.
I know we still have a few more people out there. We do not have any further questions. We'll wait a couple minutes, see if you have any questions, and then we'll wrap things up. All right, it doesn't look like we have any further questions. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you to Ben for his presentation on SEO and optimizing CoveritLive. We hope to see you again here next time on October 11th. Thank you.